The impossible equation. The Myriad Collective had never known defeat. For 9,000 years, they had expanded through the galaxy with mathematical precision, their hive-mind consciousness calculating victory with absolute certainty. Their biotechnological vessels, massive structures that resembled crystalline orchids spanning kilometers, moved through space like a perfectly choreographed dance, each maneuver predicted and executed with femtosecond accuracy. Admiral Thrix, primary node of the Collective's fifth expansion fleet, observed the holographic representation of their next conquest, a small spiral arm in an unremarkable sector, home to a species called humans. The Myriad's preliminary assessment categorized them as a Type 2.3 civilization, barely capable of interstellar travel, with colonies scattered across just 17 systems. Primitive, inefficient, disorganized. Probability of total subjugation within standard operation parameters, 87%, reported the secondary node. Time to complete assimilation, 47 standard cycles. Thrix pulsed acknowledgement through the neural network that connected all Myriad. Their species had evolved beyond individual thought millennia ago, becoming a singular consciousness distributed across billions of bodies. Their technology had followed the same path, integrated, predictive, and perfectly harmonious. Initiate standard contact protocol, Thrix commanded. Offer assimilation or elimination. Half a galaxy away, Commander Ilara Chen stood on the bridge of the Terran naval ship Audacity, Earth's newest and most desperate gamble. Unlike the gleaming ships of science fiction from humanity's past, the Audacity was ugly, a patchwork of technologies, some borrowed from refugee alien species, others invented in the desperate years since humanity learned of the Myriad's existence. They dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Proxima system, reported Lieutenant Park, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. 3 primary vessels and at least 20 support craft. Energy signatures off the charts. Chen nodded, her expression grim but determined. At 42, she had spent the last 5 years preparing for this moment, ever since the Ardini refugees had arrived in Sol system with warnings about the unstoppable force consuming entire civilizations at the galaxy's edge. Open a channel to all Terran forces, she said. It's time to implement Operation Uncertainty. The Ardini ambassador Xeltor, a slender, 6-limbed being with iridescent scales, shifted uncomfortably beside her. Commander, I must once again express my concern. My species fought the Myriad for 300 years using conventional tactics. We were a Type 3 civilization, with technologies far beyond Earth's capabilities. We failed. What makes you believe? Because we're not fighting like you did, Chen interrupted. No offense, Ambassador, but your species, like the Myriad, thinks linearly, predictably. Chen activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, battle stations, quantum core to standby. Remember your training and trust in what makes us human. On the main view screen, the first communication from the Myriad appeared, not as a face or figure, but as a complex, shifting mathematical equation. Translation complete, announced the AI. Message reads, "We are the Myriad. Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is inefficient. Submit coordinates for systematic integration or face elimination." Chen smiled grimly. Send our response. What the Audacity transmitted wasn't a message in any conventional sense. It was a music video, a chaotic blend of heavy metal and classical orchestration overlaid with quantum-encrypted data packets that would appear as meaningless noise to any system trying to analyze it. No response from the Myriad, Park reported after a tense minute. They appear confused. Good, Chen said. Phase 1 complete. They can't predict what they can't understand. The Collective had encountered 7,289 distinct sentient species in its expansion. Each had followed predictable patterns of response: fear, aggression, attempted negotiation, or surrender. The response from the human vessel fit none of these categories. It was noise, randomness. The myriad's predictive algorithms attempted to extract meaning and failed. For the first time in 9 millennia, the collective hesitated. Recalculate probability matrix, Fricks commanded, a flicker of uncertainty rippling through the hive mind. Unable to establish baseline parameters, the secondary node responded. Human response contains contradictory elements that violate standard communication protocols. Irrelevant, Fricks decided. Proceed with standard combat engagement. Their technological level cannot possibly pose a threat. The myriad battle fleet arranged itself in perfect formation, a three-dimensional geometric pattern that had proven optimal through thousands of conflicts. Their weapons, powered by harvested stellar energy, charged with a humming that would have been beautiful if it weren't so deadly. On the Audacity, Commander Chen watched the enemy formation with a mixture of dread and anticipation. Everything humanity had learned about the myriad confirmed they were creatures of pattern and prediction. Their combat doctrine relied on calculating battlefield outcomes with perfect accuracy, which had proven devastatingly effective against conventional forces. But humans had never excelled at being conventional. Launch quantum drones, Chen ordered. From the Audacity's launch bays, hundreds of small, unmanned craft swarmed into space. Unlike traditional drones, these didn't follow programmed flight paths. Each contained a miniaturized quantum uncertainty engine, technology developed by combining human theoretical physics with practical applications learned from other species. The drone's movements were literally unpredictable, even to their creators. They operated on quantum probability fields rather than deterministic programming. The myriad's targeting systems faltered as they attempted to track objects whose positions and vectors could not be precisely determined. Their perfect formation began to fragment as individual nodes attempted to compensate for the inexplicable behavior of these tiny craft. "They're reconfiguring," Park announced. "Energy readings suggest they're charging their main weapons array." "As expected," Chen replied. "All ships, implement Phase 2. Across the 17 human-controlled systems, the colonial defense forces had been preparing for this moment. Unlike the refugee species who had faced the myriad before, humanity hadn't built bigger ships or more powerful weapons. Instead, they had embraced their oldest and most distinctive trait, unpredictability. The colonial ships now activated specially designed quantum field generators that masked their energy signatures, making them appear to be in multiple places simultaneously. Some vessels seemed to vanish entirely, while others projected false images that tricked the myriad sensors. Admiral Fricks experienced something the collective had not known for millennia: confusion. "Primary targeting solutions failing," reported the secondary node. "Human vessels exhibiting quantum-level position uncertainty. Combat prediction algorithms returning multiple contradictory outcomes." The perfect formation of the myriad fleet began to dissolve as individual vessels responded differently to the chaos unfolding around them. For a species that had evolved to think as one, this fragmentation was catastrophic. "Recalibrate all systems," Fricks commanded. "Focus fire on the largest human vessel." The myriad's primary weapons, beams of concentrated plasma channeled through exotic matter lenses, fired at the Audacity. By any conventional physics, the human ship should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, the beams passed through what appeared to be a holographic projection. The real Audacity was elsewhere, or everywhere, its actual position masked by the quantum uncertainty field. "They're vulnerable," Chen announced, allowing herself a moment of fierce pride in human ingenuity. "All ships, commence Operation Chaos." The human fleet attacked, not with overwhelming force, but with deliberate randomness. Ships appeared and disappeared, firing from impossible angles. Weapons switched between different energy signatures mid-blast, confounding the myriad's adaptive shielding. Most crucially, the human commanders acted independently, making decisions based on intuition and creativity rather than optimal tactical doctrine. Where the myriad expected logical responses, they encountered improvisation. Where they anticipated retreat, they found aggression. Where they predicted direct attacks, they encountered misdirection. As the battle entered its third hour, the unthinkable happened. A myriad primary vessel, one of the massive crystalline structures that had never been damaged in recorded history, shattered under concentrated fire from 5 colonial defenders that had approached using completely different and unpredictable vectors. A ripple of shock passed through the collective consciousness. Defeat was not merely unexpected, it was outside their conceptual framework. Recalculate, Fricks commanded desperately. Full emergency protocols. But the secondary node had no answer. The mathematics that had guided the myriad to countless victories now failed them completely in the face of quantum uncertainty and human unpredictability. As the first part of the battle concluded, Commander Chen allowed herself a small smile. The impossible had been achieved. The myriad fleet was in disarray, their perfect calculations rendered useless by humanity's embrace of chaos and uncertainty. But this was just the beginning. The real test would come in what followed, as humanity prepared to take the fight directly to an enemy that had never known defeat, until they encountered the quantum underdogs from Earth. The human variable. Admiral Fricks had never experienced failure. In 9,000 years of myriad expansion, the concept had been relegated to theoretical constructs, never reality. Yet as the damaged remnants of the 5th expansion fleet regrouped at the edge of the human-controlled territory, the impossible had occurred. Analysis complete, the secondary node reported, its usual confident tone now wavering. Human technology incorporates quantum indeterminacy at a fundamental level. Their vessels exist in probability states rather than fixed positions. Our predictive algorithms cannot establish reliable targeting solutions. Fricks processed this information through the collective consciousness. The implications were troubling beyond the immediate tactical situation. The myriad's entire civilization was built on predictability. Their social structure, their technology, their conquest strategy. If they could not predict, they could not function. The collective must adapt, Fricks decided. Summon the 7th and 9th expansion fleets. We will overwhelm these humans with numerical superiority. Meanwhile, aboard the Audacity, Commander Chen was under no illusions about their situation. They had bloodied the myriad's nose, but the war was far from over. Status report, she ordered, moving between damaged stations on the bridge. The ship had taken hits despite its quantum evasion systems, proof that even the unpredictable couldn't completely avoid such overwhelming firepower. Quantum core operating at 72% efficiency, Lieutenant Park reported. Shield generators are strained but holding. The Colonial Fleet reports similar conditions. We hurt them, Commander, but they're regrouping. Ambassador Exeltor stared at the tactical display with his 4 eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. In 3 centuries of warfare, my people never managed to destroy a single primary myriad vessel. You have shattered 3 in a single engagement. Don't celebrate yet, Chen cautioned. They'll be back, and they'll try to adapt. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. All vessels, this is Commander Chen. Phase 1 was successful beyond our most optimistic projections, but the myriad aren't beaten. They're learning. We need to implement Phase 2 before they can develop countermeasures. The human fleet's response came quickly, not in perfect unison, but in a cacophony of individual acknowledgments that reflected humanity's diverse and independent nature. Unlike the myriad, humans didn't think as one. And that was their greatest strength. Dr. Maya Okonkwo, lead scientist of the Quantum Warfare Initiative, joined Chen on the bridge. Her dark eyes gleamed with intensity as she reviewed the battle data. The uncertainty field is working even better than our simulations predicted, she noted. But the myriad are quick learners. They're already attempting to map probability distributions rather than exact positions, which is why we need to change the rules again, Chen replied. Begin preparations for the Schrödinger maneuver. Named after the famous thought experiment, the Schrödinger maneuver was humanity's most audacious strategy. It involved not merely existing in multiple probable states, but actively manipulating those probabilities to create tactical advantages that defied conventional physics. As the human fleet prepared, the myriad reinforcements arrived, hundreds of crystalline vessels blinking into existence at the system's edge. The combined might of 3 expansion fleets represented the largest concentration of myriad force in centuries. They're adapting their formation, Park observed. Less geometric precision, more distributed positioning. They're learning, Chen agreed, but not fast enough. Activate the quantum beacon. Deep within the Audacity's core, a device unlike any ever created by humanoid species hummed to life. Based on principles that merged quantum mechanics with technologies borrowed from half a dozen alien refugees, the quantum beacon didn't merely confuse enemy sensors. It fundamentally altered the probability field of the entire battle space. Across the myriad fleet, sensors and predictive systems went haywire. Vessels that appeared solidly positioned suddenly registered as being in multiple locations simultaneously. Weapons locked onto targets that existed as probability clouds rather than physical objects. The human variable cannot be calculated, the secondary node reported, actual distress evident in its communication to Thrix. Their technology violates causality principles the collective has observed since our awakening. But Thrix was not ready to concede. Implement wide-spectrum assault. Probability suggests some weapons will find their targets regardless of position uncertainty. The myriad fleet fired, thousands of energy beams crisscrossing space in a lethal lattice designed to hit targets regardless of their exact position. It was a brute force approach for a species that had always relied on precision, and it was devastatingly effective against the smaller human vessels caught in the barrage. Colonial vessels defiant and intrepid destroyed, Park reported grimly. New Melbourne colony defense grid offline. They're pushing through our uncertainty field through sheer volume of fire. Chen nodded, her expression tight but controlled. They're using our own tactic against us, embracing chaos, exactly as we predicted. She turned to Dr. Okonkwo. Activate Phase 3. The scientist hesitated. Commander, Phase 3 hasn't been fully tested. The theoretical model suggests. We're beyond theory now, Doctor, Chen interrupted. It's time to show the myriad what humans can really do when pushed to the edge. Dr. Okonkwo nodded and transmitted the activation codes to the remaining human fleet. Each vessel had been equipped with quantum entanglement nodes, devices that linked their operational systems across vast distances. In conventional warfare, this would provide minimal advantage. But combined with humanity's quantum uncertainty technology, it created something unprecedented. The human fleet began to move not as individual ships, but as a single quantum-entangled entity. When one vessel altered course, others responded instantaneously through quantum connection rather than communication signals. Their movements became not merely unpredictable, but synchronized in their very unpredictability, a paradox that the myriad consciousness could not process. There, cooperating without communication, the secondary node reported, confusion rippling through the collective. Tactical responses occur faster than light communication allows. Thrix, for the first time, experienced an emotion the collective had engineered out of its consciousness millennia ago: fear. All vessels, full emergency protocols, the Admiral commanded. Disengage predictive systems and rely on individual node processing. But the myriad had evolved too far from individuality. Without their collective processing and predictive algorithms, they were reduced to fumbling in the dark, each vessel acting with a fraction of the intelligence the collective normally brought to bear. Commander Chen watched the tactical display as the myriad formation dissolved into chaos, not the controlled chaos of human strategy, but true disorganization. Now, she ordered, all vessels implement Gordian Protocol. The quantum-entangled human fleet moved as one, executing maneuvers that appeared random to observers, but were in fact precisely coordinated through quantum links. Where the myriad expected attack, they found empty space. Where they prepared defenses, they encountered overwhelming force. The massive Myriad command vessel, Admiral Frick's personal node, found itself surrounded by 5 human ships that had appeared to be elsewhere a moment before. The quantum uncertainty field collapsed around the crystalline structure, momentarily forcing it into a single, definite position. "Fire," Chen commanded. The Audacity and its companion vessels unleashed everything they had, not merely conventional weapons, but directed quantum disruption beams specifically designed to sever the Myriad's neural network connections. The massive crystalline structure didn't explode so much as fracture along conceptual lines, its perfect geometric form shattering into billions of fragments. With it went Admiral Frick's and the primary coordination node for all 3 Myriad expansion fleets. What followed wasn't a battle but a rout. Without central coordination, the Myriad vessels fell into disarray. Some continued fighting with diminished effectiveness. Others retreated in disorganized panic. A few simply went dormant, their controlling intelligence lost with the destruction of the command node. 6 hours after it began, the battle ended. The combined might of 3 Myriad expansion fleets, a force that had conquered thousands of worlds across centuries, lay broken and scattered before a handful of human vessels and their colonial allies. On the bridge of the Audacity, Commander Chen allowed herself to collapse into her command chair, exhaustion finally overtaking adrenaline. "Damage report," she requested, her voice hoarse. 7 colonial vessels destroyed, Park reported solemnly. 3 more heavily damaged. New Melbourne colony has suffered orbital bombardment, but ground defenses held. The Audacity's quantum core is stable but will require extensive recalibration. Ambassador Exceltor approached Chen, his movements conveying a reverence that hadn't been present before. "In all our history," the Ardini said, "no species has ever defeated a Myriad expansion fleet. Today, your people didn't merely survive. You shattered 3 such fleets." He lowered his head in a gesture of profound respect. "The galaxy will never be the same." Chen nodded wearily. "That was always the plan, Ambassador. The Myriad conquered through fear and predictability. We knew we couldn't match their technology or numbers, so we changed the game entirely." Dr. Okonkwo joined them, her tablet displaying the ongoing analysis of the battle. "The quantum entanglement held better than expected," she noted. "And the Myriad's response confirms our hypothesis. Their hive mind is their greatest weakness. They literally cannot comprehend truly independent thought or quantum uncertainty." "What happens now?" Seltor asked. "The Myriad still control thousands of systems. They will recover, adapt." Chen smiled, the expression containing equal parts exhaustion and determination. "No, Ambassador, they won't. Because we're not done changing the rules." She gestured to the quantum beacon at the heart of the Audacity. "This was just the prototype. Even now, our colonies are building larger versions, powerful enough to extend quantum uncertainty fields across entire star systems." Understanding dawned in the Ambassador's 4 eyes. "You're going to make yourselves unpredictable on a galactic scale." "Exactly," Chen confirmed. "The Myriad can't conquer what they can't predict, and humanity has always excelled at being unpredictable." In the days that followed, news of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of conventional communication, carried by quantum entanglement relays developed by human scientists. Species that had lived under Myriad domination for generations suddenly saw possibility where before there had been only resignation. 3 weeks after the battle, representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species arrived at Earth to form an alliance unlike any the galaxy had seen, not based on shared biology or compatible technologies, but on the simple desire for self-determination. And at the heart of this new alliance stood humanity. Not the most advanced, not the most numerous, but possessing that unique quality that had allowed them to defeat the undefeatable, the wonderful, terrifying human ability to embrace chaos, to think independently, and to defy prediction. The quantum underdogs had changed the equation of galactic power forever.